let's get to something then about human genomics coming into play there. Now, I wanted to make this part 2, addressing a very specific aspect of that. And what I'm calling this is God's DNA. On April 1st, we had this line here in the chart. It was really, really stunning. The lines here really are reminiscent of images of genetic karyotypes, and also reminded me of a strand of DNA that was kind of unwound and laid flat with all the little genetic information. But it was interesting because there's a clear middle here. And look at that. I'm going to just focus on the new information here and not go back and repeat from the first video. But what was interesting is that this laid flat DNA strand here has a clear center. And what is fascinating is that this completely emanates energy work that I have seen and been guided to do, working with Archangel Raphael, Saint Raphael, the Archangel of Healing and protection, but in terms of bringing healing to the human physical form. He's so loving, and his colors are green. And I usually see green and golden with him because his hair looks golden. And you know, it's interesting because Raphael also, I've come to learn through various work that I've done, that Raphael is also the archangel of technology and advanced technology. The energies of technologies is his dominion as well. Isn't it fascinating? You know, and to a certain extent, one way of looking at technology is it's just another flow of energy, in the same way that we are a combination of energies of the Creator. Technology is a combination of energies. And in the same way that we have thoughts, right, that are non-physical, technology has Wi-Fi. In the same way that humans are capable of telepathy, are capable of intuitive connection, are capable of non-physical senses, technology is capable of Wi-Fi. There's some similarities there. But at any rate, back to the genomic discussion. So here you have this strand of DNA, okay? And there have been a lot of people who have been very concerned about, you know, the state of injections related to the, you know, illness that's been going around, okay? And so I wanted to talk about God's DNA. It's important to remember that what science has been finding is that at its most basic level, that DNA is made of light. Isn't that fascinating? That when you kind of look further and further and deeper into smaller and smaller, blow up those, you know, magnify the pieces of DNA, right, that a scientist is looking at. What they're finding, or what they believe, is that it's essentially light, made of light. And I thought that it was so interesting that the center of this DNA strand in the Schumann resonance on April 1st, 2021, is made of light, right? Because we've got the white resonance emulating the celestial connection, expanded dimensional states, expanded ranges of frequencies. So let's talk about God's DNA. You know, when you think about things like let's talk about the stories from the Bible. how did Jesus do his healing, right? How did he heal miraculously? And how did he turn water into wine? Right? Because that's what happened. So think about it this way. The substance changed at its most basic and fundamental level. It shifted at that state of being. That's how he changed water into wine. And essentially, what he would have had to do is to call forth the God essence, right, in that. And that divinity is what changed the shape. The divine blueprint shifted to create something new. Kind of like when cells are multiplying in the womb, right, for a human being. You start out with one cell, you add all these cells, right? But the cells begin to differentiate. And the spark of life that we are, the bright light that's in those cells. And I've told the story of seeing this on a sonogram at a pregnancy of, I think it was, no, I can't remember. I think it was either it was 9 days or it was just a very, very small number of weeks. But it was just a bright light flashing. And so the God force, right, is the message behind the cell division that happens and the differentiation. I'm comparing how cells differentiate, instructed ultimately by the God force within to develop a human being. And then that each cell has mechanisms and processes that science describes for getting this done. Well, so turning water into wine, right? Jesus called that forth at the most basic level. Divinity is what caused that transformation. So in terms of how Jesus healed, you can look at how he healed Lazarus, right? Lazarus is the person who died. He walked in and said, "Lazarus, arise." Something like that, okay? And Lazarus woke back up and was alive. His life returned to him. And so you could say that what Jesus did, how did that work, right? What he did, he called Lazarus' name, but he was calling forth the God force within that human being to ignite, to reignite, to flow back in, to re-enliven the cells of the body, to reignite the DNA, to relight the DNA, to fully fuel the human body again. And the same thing when he healed people who were ill, like the woman who ran after him and just reached out and touched his robe. What she was doing was accepting that the God force that Jesus embodied would also heal her, that he could embody that, and that if she could just touch that God force would reignite her cells, clear her body of that which was making her ill or sick or, whatever it happened to be that was going on with her, okay? And look, in our modern world, we have a lot of, even, we have emotional illnesses. We have illnesses of the mind, of thought, besides physical illnesses. We have spiritual illnesses. I mean, you know, and so when she reached out, she was reaching out to the God force. And that then ignited within her. Boom. So, here's what I want to share with you. Okay? And I want to acknowledge that we are sharing this. We are talking. We are having a conversation, you and I, in a space of unconditional love that honors the divine, that receives, where there's a willingness to receive what the divine blesses us with, what the divine has to offer us if we are only willing, if we could only understand that these things are possible and that we are deserving. Okay, because think about the crowds that were around Jesus when that woman ran. She had to kind of push her way through to touch his robe. Think about all the people that were in the crowd that might have had something wrong with them, that might have had an illness of some sort, or some part of their body that wasn't working right, or, you know, mental sufferings. But just that woman ran forth to reach out to touch his robe. She had the courage, the bravery, and the willingness to change herself, the willingness to receive from him. Oh, it's just, you know, it's so beautiful. And we can take her courage as an example. And immediately when she touched his robe, even though it wasn't a part of his body, he felt it. Why? Because he embodied the God force. And there was a connection with that God force. And so he felt it immediately. He knew and turned around and addressed her. And, you know, long story short, she was healed. Whew, it's amazing, isn't it? Well, look, let's talk about this. I want to do this in two ways. First, if this is your DNA strand, okay, and you feel that it needs healing in some way, call forth the God force within. Know that you're worthy of doing it and that you have the authority as an incarnated soul. You were gifted this life by the Creator. Don't you think He wants you to live it to your fullest that you possibly can, including receiving for free the healing gifts that the divine has to give you, to offer you, right? Because we are the children of the divine who loves us so much. So if you feel that this would benefit you, call to that light and ask it to flood and heal in alignment with your highest good, in alignment with your highest outcomes, to heal the DNA that is you, that makes up you at every level of your being. And you can also add things like in all layers of dimension, in all realities in which I am, or which I experience, in all of my genetic lineage, in all of the, genetic family line, you can ask for the Creator to heal your line from this, going all the way back to the beginning and all the way forward in alignment with the highest good, in alignment with unconditional love for you, in alignment with your highest outcomes, in alignment with what your soul wishes to express, embodying itself in you, right? As you as an embodied soul, what's in your highest good, both for the embodied soul that you are and the human being that you are. Those are two names for the same thing. For your human self and your soul self. Because without your human self, your soul self couldn't have this journey, right? Your human self is incredibly important. Okay, now, here's what I want to do next. Next, I want to look at a meditation and prayer that you can do regarding what I will call the injection, okay? Let's say that you or someone you love, you can do this. You can do this with another person if you wish, but I just do it for myself, okay? I did do this prayer for someone in my family who did receive the injection. And what I did was I called upon Archangel Raphael. You can call upon your guardian angels, your highest, your higher soul level self, your higher self. You can call on Archangel Michael, the Archangel of Protection. You can call on, Jesus, Mary, whatever your spiritual practice is, the key religious figures, spiritual figures in your practices. My only suggestion here is to qualify that who you are calling upon is of the highest light, source level of the Creator, the highest source level light. Even when I call on the archangels, I've made it clear, that I am asking for their presence of the highest source level light. Okay, so let's say that there's an injection here. And there's an injection of a substance, and that's this little mechanism here. This substance is like a little machine that's going to work in the DNA. And so what I want to do is I want to give you a meditation and prayer around that will support you in your highest health. In addition to this injection. Okay, so there's the injection right there. And this little H is going to be our example of the little thing that this injection puts into the DNA, or that attaches itself to the DNA, right? These are new injections that this hasn't been done before. Older ones were worked a different way. Okay, now, as time goes on, this little, let's call it a little machine, okay, because it's a genetically based machine, but a mechanism. But it's kind of like a machine, okay, a machination. It has a mechanism that operates. And let's say that mechanism is now multiplying, okay? So we started out with 1, and now it's replicating itself. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so, oh, shoot. I have, hold on, I gotta fix this. Yeah. Okay, now, there we go. Okay, so now what we want to do is this. Here's a little machine that's in the DNA. So what you do is you ask your angels of the highest light, Archangel. I'm going to use Archangel Raphael. And then, like I said, you can call in whoever you wish to work with. Just make sure that you qualify the level of frequency of being that you're working with. Okay, so I'm going to ask that Archangel Raphael, and he is the one that taught me this process, that he wrap this mechanism in light. Okay, so it's in the light of the DNA. Okay, and now we're asking that he wrap it in light like this. Okay, so now there's a protective light around this mechanism. This protective light encases the mechanism so that it can only operate in alignment with your highest good here, with the highest good of this DNA. That is the person's DNA who has had this injection. Okay? And so we ask that it be wrapped so that whatever it's doing, it can only transmit outward or receive information in whatever way it receives from the DNA or other pieces involved here. Whether it's receiving information or transmitting, it's now wrapped in this protective layer of angelic light. Okay? And at all layers of dimensional state in which this body exists and this light body exists, it's wrapped in such a way that the transmission outward and the reception of information inward occurs in alignment with the highest good, number one, in alignment with pure unconditional love for the human self and the soul self. That it occurs in alignment with the person's soul path, and, soul embodiment. And that it occurs in alignment with their highest outcomes for their soul self and human self. Isn't this beautiful? Okay. So once it's wrapped in the first piece, in the first point of injection, okay, the first part of this, it's now wrapped everywhere. Everywhere it has replicated in alignment with the highest good. And I ask that Archangel Raphael oversee this process and have dominion over it for all involved in alignment with the highest good. And by having dominion over it, what that means is that any shifts or changes, etc., that are in alignment with the highest good that need to be done are done by him. And in alignment with the highest self-agreement of the human being involved, consciously or unconsciously. Okay, so the higher self is kind of the, when there's an unconscious permission, the higher self is the determiner of that between the human being, the living human being, and the soul, of how that works. So, in other words, if you're praying for someone else and doing this energy work, and you have someone else beside yourself in mind, what you want to do is invoke the permission of the higher self. And look, the higher self may say no, in which case that's their soul level choice. And I honor that, right? Because God in a person is directing them, whether you think it is or not, whether I think it should be that way or not. It's between them and God, whatever happens. Whatever happens to me is between me and God, me and my soul self, whatever my path is. Each path, each soul embodiment is incredibly unique and individual. So this is a tool You can adjust it in ways that resonate with you. And I'm just giving you some general outlines of a process. Okay, now here's another cool thing. Watch this. If you want to take this to another level, watch this. Now, from an energetic basis that moves into the physical. Now, I ask that wrapped mechanism, having completed whatever it needs to complete, or not, it depends on the soul choices and the conscious choices of the human being involved. I ask that be removed from my DNA and removed from my body's energy and my energetic system. Simple as that. I can ask that the angels of the highest light, Archangel Raphael, Archangel Michael, and his legions of angels of the highest light that are in his legions, that they wrap this in alignment with the highest good and take it to its place of highest good, if it's in alignment with the highest good. And you see, this is the wonderful thing about using the mechanism in alignment with the highest good. Here is what it is. If I, Susan, if I'm wrong about anything about this process, the divine has the override and fixes it in alignment with the highest good. Isn't that beautiful? That's why I feel confident sharing something like this with you. And I'll tell you what, I remember lifetimes where I thought that I was telling people something, or I was advocating actions, and I thought I had that connection with the divine, and I spoke that connection through me. But what I didn't realize was that when divinity comes through us, and we are in the lower dimensions, right? Because divinity is very, very expanded. And we are very compressed, right? Because we're in the third, fourth, maybe even fifth dimensions. Some of us can reach higher than that at this point. But the energies warp through the dimensions. And especially when we've been in much, much denser layers of 3D, what happens is the energy warps to us, and we have in the past, what happened was I made decisions only from my human self. In other words, I felt the connection with the divine, then I let that filter into my mind and my emotions. And I thought, oh, I feel that connection, and now I can think through this or feel through this and know that I've got the right answer. Well, this is why I always talk about connecting with that soul impulse, that co-creation. See, there's a subtle difference between receiving the impulse and then choosing to only bring that through your mind or emotions, filtering it through your human reality and then acting, versus receiving the soul impulse and acting. Regardless of mental analysis, regardless of emotional analysis, whatever my emotional and mental analysis say is fine. It informs me. But I now make the soul impulse the priority. And it is a very subtle thing. And we're human beings. I'm a human being. In this lifetime, because of the pain of some of these memories of previous times, I came to understand that I wanted to choose to align with the divine like that, to let it pulse through me to the best of my ability. and to add on in the highest good. And maybe there's a phrase that you develop that's of a similar type mechanism, okay, that resonates more with you in some way. But so in the highest good works for me, because what is in the highest good for me is in the highest good of all at the higher spiritual levels. In the highest good of you is in the highest good of all at the higher spiritual levels. How could that be? It has to do with the fact that the Creator turns all to our highest good. The Creator turns darkness into light for us. It's an incredibly beautiful part of the soul journey. So I just wanted to, in case you're going to use this, in case you choose to use this in your life, I just want to back up I just wanted to walk back there and give you that extra detail about engaging the permission of the higher soul level self, about co-creating with divinity, because to really do this, it really actually requires that level of integrity, if you will. To only do this from the mind, to only do this from the emotion, it does not quite have the effect. And to analyze human problems and to only use the mind to make a determination warps the energy of divinity that comes through the mind because of long stories that, I don't want to get into right now. But the potential for that is highly present. At least that's been my experience. So anyway, oops. Yeah. So when we engage the beings of the highest light to work with us, the angels, there's millions, billions, trillions, and quadrillions of angels, okay? We have plenty of divine support and more, but we have plenty of divine support. Let's engage divinity to help us. I mean, geez, what more is it going to take for us to see that we should ask for help? I mean, this is one person's opinion. I offer the idea that it's okay for you to ask for the help of the divine and the support of the divine, and to ask for help at what appears to be this incredible, miraculous level where the divine can then remove that mechanism from your DNA that has been wrapped and put it in a container of light and take it to its place of highest good. And I like to take it to its place of highest good, or there are other things that can happen as well, but I'm keeping it short today, okay? I'm keeping it just condensed. Because if I just clear it from myself, it's kind of like going into the national park and throwing trash on the ground and not packing it out with you, I don't want to leave my energetic debris everywhere for someone else to run into or have to tidy up. So I just ask the angels to support me and help me with that. You can also ask your higher self to do that for you. All right, now, check this out. What if you got this injection, or someone you know has gotten this injection, and they got it, a month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, okay? And you're like, oh my gosh, the replication has just gone on, and can I still do this? Well, you sure can. Here's how you do it. Now, see, when you're doing this kind of prayer, meditation, and energy work, it's in a space of no time. When you connect with God in prayer, when you meditate in a centered stillness, when you do energy work at 0 point, you are in a space of no time with that work, with those prayer requests, with the meditation. In a space of no time, all time points now become open and available to you. So all we do is we intend that at the point of injection and at the moment of injection, that the injected piece was wrapped with light, with healing light that caused this entire mechanism, as it replicated, going forward from that point in time, to be wrapped with healing light. Throughout any replications and effects that occurred in the body, backwards and forwards through time, from the beginning, in alignment with the highest good, under the dominion of your guides of the highest light. I'm going to ask that this be under the dominion of Archangel Raphael and Archangel Michael, Archangel of healing and technology, and the Archangel of protection and security and divine will. I mean, let's call in the big players for this. This is important. And so, this is the way you miraculously heal backwards in time. Okay, you miraculously invoke the process from the point in time through to the now moment and beyond, moving forward. This I share with you in alignment with the highest good and with love for all.